Is that
I'm
better?
gonna, yeah, I'm gonna turn on the recording.
Cool.
So you're pretty happy about your laptop, huh?
Yeah, it's good. Hmm.
Cool. Yeah, we're not on you're not on the phone. That's awesome.
Yeah. Are you looking at me on a laptop?
Yeah, that lamp is so bright that you're almost completely black.
Okay. You take care of that. Is that better?
Oh yeah, there you go.
Now I feel like I'm in the dark.
Oh yeah. Well, you could just even move the lamp more in front of you and then you'd be lit up. That would be an option.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
But
I'll try this. You can still see me, right?
yes, I can.
Okay.
Your chin's still a little bit cut off.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It looks like my chin's there. Yeah. I see you. You look nice.
really? Thanks.
Yeah.
What do you think of this shirt?
That's cool. That's
Uh,
far out. Yeah, it looks like a trippy shirt, mushroom
yeah.
shirt.
I actually got it in San Francisco, down there. What's that street? That really famous hippie street?
Hate Ashbury.
Haight Ashbury, yeah.
Yeah.
I met these when I first got there. I just it was it's really busy most time and you can't get a parking spot, and I just happened to get this parking spot in this one place, and I got out and there was a smoke shop right there, and there was this guy standing outside, and I just felt kind of attracted to him, and I went over and talked to him, and him and the other guys that owned that smoke shop and a couple other ones, they just turned out to be like my best friends down there. They were just these really awesome guys, and they were like open to like deeper things, and like kind of a spiritual path kind of thing, and
Yeah.
it was just so awesome. I was like led right to them, it was so
Yeah.
cool.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
we had so much fun too. It was really neat. And I got this shirt there. That's what I was gonna say. I got I and then on that strip, right, that Haight Ashbury Street, there's all these other shops that are just really awesome, like that. I
Yeah.
got this really good kind of like jacket that they actually made in the Andes in this one shop.
That sounds
Um,
dope.
yeah,
I've always
really
wanted to go there.
colorful.
I've always wanted to go to San Francisco.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
So, how's your week been?
Pretty good. Busy. I did a lot of readings this week. And that was good. Had a couple really amazing soul schools, 3 of them. And then bought a new computer. So it was a pretty eventful week.
Wow.
So,
Do you have anything on your heart that you want to share?
um no, just I think just continuing to stay on path. I've been devoting my life to becoming very I think I've shared with you before, like getting up in the morning and navigating yourself and making sure your choices are meeting what your divine understanding of what those things are, and being able to yoke yourself with that in your choices and in your thinking.
Mhm.
And so I just what is called organization, spiritual organization, is working into my chart more and more for like for soul for my soul school is actually my daily education system. And so that's actually very organized. It actually structures your day to facilitate lessons and to like create daily organization for you. And so that's really kicking in to a high degree. So, you know, supporting me in that is like my main goal right at the moment.
Could you repeat just the last couple sentences? I was distracted.
I was just saying that just being staying on task and being organized as a student is my goal.
Mm. Sounds. I love to hear you describe your spiritual path and your spiritual desires and stuff. It just, I feel like it's just like almost like nourishment when I hear you talk.
Thank you. That's like a really good compliment.
Yeah.
Your words are like nourishment. Your words
Yeah.
feed my soul. That's my
Yep. Exactly.
yeah, thank you for the compliment.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I'm just focusing in on it's like the divine's coming in and it's really organizing daily structures for me. Like
Mm.
it's facilitating all these lessons in different aspects. It's getting me up at certain times so that I'm staying on task with my workouts and my prayer and my
Yep.
study. And so it's good.
Yep.
I'm pretty structured with everything that's going on. And that I like that. I like being organized. And it's not me doing it. I'm not doing it from a control space. I'm
Right.
just letting divine organize my day into a higher
Yeah.
systematic level.
Yeah. It's almost like letting go. It's another form of letting go. You
It is.
know,
It's yeah.
the whole spiritual principle, if we let go, we're going to be loved, we're going to be taken care of.
Right.
When we let go on our schedule, then it's like another level where the spirit's like, oh, you know what? I can remind you of things. I can wake you up. I can
Totally.
kind of like put that passion in you. I can kind of like set a spark off that makes you want to get out of bed.
Right. Yeah. In our in our conversation, you asked me like if I experienced daily love, and the I was thinking about it, and the answer that I think that I gave is like my schedule, that what I'm just explaining and what you brought out is like that's how I experience daily love, because in order to let go, you have to have a great deal of trust
Yes.
and allowance that you're going to be okay. You got to allow the universe to work for you, and that's a tremendous leap. And a lot of people can't or do not know how to do that.
Right.
And so real, like I think spirituality is just like totally giving yourself up to that, whatever it is, and trusting and taking that leap.
Yes.
And there's a natural line of thinking that says that I got to do everything, I got to control it, I got to make sure I do this, I got to call the person and do all this and this and this, and yeah, we do stuff. But I think if we recognize that it's coming from another place, it can be way more enriching. It can organize things better because it sees stuff that we don't see. you know
Right.
we it sees a way bigger picture, and it knows, like, it has like all it knows all the UPS like thing. It knows where everyone is, and like,
Mhm.
oh, that car's over there and this car's over here, and that person's gonna
Yeah.
call you, they're late and doing this, like,
It's like it has the
really.
orchestration metadata.
Totally, yeah.
Can
Orchestration
you
metadata.
lean your top of your laptop a little bit more forward? It's a little distracting because instead of being in the center of the screen, there you go.
Right.
Yeah, there you go.
Cool.
That's more relaxing now.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, that is better.
Um. Yeah, boy. There's so many different ways to describe that, and different ways that it's come to me, at different times. But it's real, man. It's so real. And the other thing about trust, boy, I've been thinking a lot about trust lately. Um, that trust is such a key factor. It's so important.
Yeah.
Um, and so the trust even comes into the question that kind of came up through one experience that I had this week. I was in another kind of spiritual meeting, a Baha'i faith meeting, and they have these really they have these interesting questions each week. They have like a particular question, but there's always like in the world, there's kind of like the scientific perspective where um, things aren't real unless they can be proven with the scientific method.
Right. Yeah.
And then there's also the idea that you shouldn't generalize past the extent to which you've tested. So if you ask one person, like what's their opinion of something, you can't say everybody's opinion is that, because that one person told you their opinion. And so science kind of has these arguments and complaints they make about people generalizing too much, or like stating that things are real without doing scientific testing of that.
Right.
However, what they don't
Yeah.
what they don't take into account is that there could be realities out there that are beyond the physical world. And actually some science is starting to take that into account. Now there's more talk of like the God particle,
Yeah.
and the things that physics uh, is going further, into like the energy that is common to all, and the different frequencies, and how there's some kind of force out there that does seem to be like a life force. They're starting to recognize or move into that more. But the problem is, anyway, so there was this one guy that he actually, one week he said he kind of wrote off spirituality with anthropomorphism, which is when you personify an inanimate object as a living object and you give it like a personality.
Yeah.
And kind of like, the idea is that the whole universe is just basically inanimate, um and that God is something we take an inanimate object and we make a person out of it. The other thing that they do that I've experienced recently is transference. And what transference means is like the thing like in counseling where you maybe had traumas with your mom, and you go into counseling, and you substitute the counselor for your mom, and you begin to try to get your relationship resolved through your counselor. And the idea is that all God is us transferring our need for love that we don't get in this world to this imaginary God, so that we can feel that we're being loved from this God. So we're just doing transference, right, to God. And I was thinking about that, and also I was also meditating and asking the Divine Mother, what about this? Because I have no question that I've experienced experiences that are definitely outside of myself, that could not have happened without there being another presence doing something.
Yeah.
So on one level, I have absolutely no doubt. The other thing is, I've had like real experiences of love healing me, and love giving me just what I needed at the right time, and the synchronicity, those the guidance and the events that happen right when we need them. And also voices that have told me things and to do something, and gone and done it. And I've actually had visions of things that of something that was very, very significant, and then right after that something happened that was exactly that same thing. It was not exactly the same in my language, but there's no way it could have been something different than what I had the vision about. There's so I've had so on one level, I'm so thankful and so deeply, I have this relationship with the divine that's so intimate, I would never question. But on the other hand, because of the perspective of the scientist and science, I just said to the Divine Mother, can you give me another sign? And I said, is it am I hurting your feelings here by asking you to prove to me yet again that you exist after everything you've done for me, in the close relationship that we have? And so I kind of struggled with it a little bit, not too much, because I've had this many, many experiences of asking the divine questions and getting answers. Like, it's not always in the form that expect it to be, but if I keep my heart open, the answer always comes in some way. The Divine Mother always loves me in some way. that shows me that she's always wanting to respond and give me love because I'm asking it from a genuine place, you know. And so, but I was kind of struggling a little bit because it was one of those weird kind of things where it's kind of like you know, like uh what's the word for it? A recursive. It's kind of a recursive thing, because I'm asking a question of the divine, but the question is, prove that you exist. You know, it's like the question, right? It's like, okay, you know, if anything's going to be outside the scope of getting a loving answer, it's going to be, do you actually exist? Let me just ask you again. Do you exist? Can you prove to me that you exist? And so that was one of the reasons I was struggling a little bit, you know, because the question is like, you're asking somebody that you're asking if they exist, and you're asking somebody that you don't know exists to answer you that they exist, right? It's definitely reductive, right? And um so anyway, I was stumbling a little bit over that, but also, I kept my heart open and stuff, and I was, there was a little bit of anger that was coming up. I'm going to be honest about that too,
Yeah.
because because there's so many times I've gone to her, you know, my sense of the divine is I call her the Divine Mother. There's many different names for God, you know, but that's mine. So I went to her, and so many times when I go to her, it's only like, you know, like a minute or like a few minutes, and I get the answer. But this time it was like there was silence. You know, it's like, I'm not getting the answer. I didn't get it last night. I didn't get it this morning. And I'm like, is she pissed off at me? Or am I asking something that I don't deserve a answer to? Or, you know, what's going on here? Am I anyway? So I just kept on trying to open my heart more and more through all of this. And then this morning, a couple things came to me. The first thing was, what you're asking me is to show you externally proof that I exist, when you've learned that the path to me is through within. And then the second answer came. However, I was reminded of a verse in the Bible that says that the way that we know of God's love is through creation. Right? So I had this reminder of a knowingness that I do experience this love in nature. And there's no mistake that there's this like sense of love and this presence of love that I've experienced in many different times in creation, you know. So I was like, yeah, you know, I have to acknowledge that. But I said, then maybe what I want here is like a sign. Maybe I'm asking for another sign, an external sign. And I know you love me, and I'm asking, you know, and then there was this kind of acknowledgement also that, am I doing this because I'm trying to do something for the scientists? And is it really my place to try to prove to a scientist that God exists? And is there kind of a little bit of ego in there that I can always go within and know that I can sense the presence of the divine? That's kind of where the anger was coming in, that, you know, too, a little bit. But because I was feeling like all of a sudden there wasn't a response, right? So I wasn't getting what I always get, right? So, so anyway, I had planned to take my laptop, and I had this idea this morning that I was, because I'm out at this other house by the beach, and I planned to put the laptop in the study, because I thought that'd be a good place for me to go to the Center for Spiritual Living service and then have our meeting afterwards. And so I was getting it all set up, and all of a sudden this idea just came like from outside, really, basically. It wasn't even like, oh, I thought, it wasn't like a memory, oh, I remember enjoying this or anything like that. But it's just like, why don't you just go sit by the window where you can see the ocean? you know, I had that sense that it was an outside voice kind of type of thing. And so I
Yeah.
went, oh, and I had this also sense that it was like, kind of like, you're going to enjoy that if you do that, you know, not from me, but like that, I had that feeling in that voice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went, okay. And so I went out, I set my laptop by the window by the ocean. I don't know if you can see the ocean there. Can you kind of see it?
No, I see the backdrop that you have
Oh,
is the
oh, I
sun.
forgot about the background. Hang on. Let
I
me,
just see the sun and the earth.
yeah. Okay, none. Okay, so there you go.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah. So there's
Is
some
this in
birds flying around.
Washington?
Westport, Washington.
Beautiful.
Yeah. But anyway, so
Is that your apartment?
no, this is a beach house actually that it's another story, but I if I I'll just say it really briefly. So there was a point in my life where I was suicidal, and I prayed to God. You know, I was alone, kind of feeling isolated. Bring me a woman in my life that has a pure heart. You know, somebody that I know that it'll be healthy for me, and that I'll have that companionship. And about 2 weeks later, I was repairing a computer over at somebody's house, and I met this woman named Marcy, and we never got into a romantic relationship. It became a friendship, but at one point she saw that I was struggling a lot because I had 5 dogs and a cat, and anytime I wanted to go to the ocean, like to walk with them and stuff, I was always having a lot of struggles because the motels wouldn't want somebody with 5 dogs and a cat. And so I had to go through all these extra hoops to do it and everything. And she actually got a beach house and basically shared it with me. Um, you know, actually put me on the what do you call it? The lease and all that, or not the lease, the deed. It was like this gift of this person came into my life and gifted me with this beach house. And anyway, that's where I'm at. I'm at that beach house. But
Wow, that was
yeah.
a fantastic story.
Yeah. And so I forgot where I was at. Oh, so I sat down, I sat the laptop out here in the living room, and I was listening to the service, the Center for Spiritual Living, the pastor, and I'd only been sitting here for about 30 seconds to a minute, I'm pretty sure it was. And he goes, as you're surfing through life, and without even thinking about it, I looked over at the window and saw the waves. And I just went, whoa, that was
Yeah,
weird. And I
yeah.
looked back and he repeated, he goes, as you're surfing through life on the waves, or something, you know, again like that. And I looked back over and I just went, damn, I think God just gave me my sign.
Yeah, sounds
You
like it.
know?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So, yeah. So the thing is that trust, you know, that's what brought this story up
Yeah,
for me,
yeah,
because trust is like, you know, opening your heart up to the point to where you can experience the love, you can experience the presence, you can experience those signs. And so that is hard for a lot of people, because for me, actually, it came through a lot of pain in my life, and trying to find a way out of pain.
yeah,
And yeah, and so for a lot of people, their opening to deeper trust is going through very, very painful situations, losses, traumas, whatever, and then they just look deeper, and then all of a sudden they find there's something actually there, you know. But there's other times. There's one time when I was 13 years old and I was walking in the woods, and I was feeling very unloved, and my life was dark because I had a real abusive family and stuff. But I wasn't really at a point where I had identified so much pain that I was like actually going to have a transformational moment of discovering the divine. I was just walking, and I walked into this clearing in the woods, and all of a sudden I literally felt this love streaming down from heaven, like just streaming down from the sky.
Wow.
And it was like, I would describe it like sheets of water, of this wonderful sense of just all this love coming down. And it hit me so hard that I just actually literally immediately fell to my knees. It's just like I just gave up. And then I could just feel this love coming on to me. And I just recognized something inside of me knew that it was God. I just knew this is God loving. This is God's love. And I think that time was just like one of those things where the divine just can, just suddenly decides to bring an experience to you where you're at. But then other times I've had that kind of experience when I've been in extreme pain, and the pain brought me to a need to open up further, like the time that I felt it was too painful for me to think when one of my dogs had passed away.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I had that sensation in my heart that I had never felt my whole life. And it was like I dropped my mind and went into my heart and sensed this presence that got bigger than me. So I think the divine helps us to find that trust. And I think also people like, us, we share experiences we have, and maybe that can trigger a possible leap of trust for somebody that might hear something we talk about. Um, and but what trust really is sometimes elusive to think about. There's situations I find myself in, like at work, where there's fears, and then it sometimes it takes a while to recognize that the fear is the flip side of trust. That I'm feeling a fear in the workplace, and it's because I'm not trusting either God's got my back on this job, or other people
Right.
can be trusted, or that I can trust myself. Sometimes trust is an elusive thing to identify that that's what we're struggling with in our pain or in our struggles, right? So I definitely can relate to it when you're talking about trust. Definitely.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. I like the backgrounds that move, the videos. I don't know if
Yeah.
I've shared this one before.
That's a moon. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. This is my vampire.
Do you see them when you do that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah. I was thinking the other night when I came out here first to the beach house, I was looking at the ocean, and it's a weird thing. Sometimes I notice that when I'm out in nature, my inner meditation isn't as near to me. It's a little bit more distance. It's almost like the stimulation of nature and the aliveness of it kind of creates more of an external focus or something. I know I was
Mm.
noticing that, but But I also, I was looking out at the ocean and I just started thinking about how long that ocean's been there, like sitting here enjoying it and getting the feeling from the hugeness of it and the rhythm of it and all those different things that go through your mind and feelings. And I was thinking, even though I have a sense of the divine, I'm still not sure if we did evolve or we were just created. I I kind of lean more towards we still evolved, all the way through plants and animals and all that stuff. And I don't think that detracts from there being a divine at all. Um, but I was looking at that and I was thinking, if that's the case, man, that ocean's been rolling in these waves even before we evolved into humans. you know Damn,
Yeah,
that's a long time. you know
yeah,
it's like, oh my god. um
it's amazing to think about that.
it's beyond. It's like the mind can't even comprehend that one. It's like,
Yeah,
damn.
yeah. I always like. It's funny you say that because when I think of trust, I think of things like that because I think people don't trust because sometimes they have this feeling that that we're sort of all alone and that we gotta like do stuff in order to like control things and make things happen the way we want to. And I think about that and I'm like, this universe has been around for a really long time and
Hmm.
has like stayed on its axis and has sun come up every day and
Yeah.
has an ocean that does stuff.
And the
And there's
moon.
everywhere you look with the animals and the plants, everything is totally organized
Hmm.
and balanced and fluid, even in the destructive moments.
Mhm.
Then that says that there obviously is something greater at work that's organizing
Right.
all of this. So what
Good
makes
point.
us think that we're so arrogant that we have to be the ones to like have to like
Oh yeah.
what do we think that we have to just like make up? I mean, it's working. It's been working. Like you said, the ocean's been there for millions of
Right.
years.
Yeah.
And so what makes us think that we have to reinvent the day, and reinvent the whole thing and do it
Right.
ourselves? We don't
Yeah. Good. Good
have to.
point, man. Good way of describing it.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's I really noticed that. Like I I see like in world events, I see people get so their constructs are so connected to fear, and then
Yeah.
out of the fear is control. And you mentioned science.
Yeah.
Science is sometimes a way for people to control because they can be
Yeah.
like, okay, I can organize all these things and structure all these things. And I do think there's a deeper science that organizes all of life. But I
Yeah.
think there's
Beautiful.
ego science that constructs things like that. And so, I
Yeah, it's
mean,
like science out of distrust. Yeah, right.
it, it's what it
Yeah.
is. It's basically
Yeah.
science from like something that doesn't. It's like what is this? Who are we? Where are we? I think you just said earlier. Sometimes there's that anger that we have for the
Mm.
divine
Yep.
because we feel. I think there's this core feeling of like abandonment and even confusion because
Yes,
it's like
yes, yes, yes.
we look outside and we're like, am I being protected?
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like it. Like I could be eaten alive at any moment. I could die of a terrible disease.
Right.
I'm probably gonna get a broken heart. I'm gonna, all this stuff. And I think it's easy to just believe those things and forget that there are these higher processes at order and
Yeah.
these beautiful structures that are there.
Yeah.
And so uh, I've learned to like when I think of nature, and it's cool that you brought that up. That brings it helps me bring in trust because it makes me trust in the grander design of it all, and it makes me feel that there's a greater engine there working that
Mhm.
is way more sophisticated than anything that I could try to come up with or control.
Yeah.
And thinking that way took a while because you know I was trained basically to think that if I wanted something done, I better do it, and that if I didn't do it, I was lazy and probably worthless. So
Exactly.
my whole life I've been taught to
Yeah.
like want a job, you go on Craigslist. If you want a girlfriend, you go onto an app, or you ask every girl you like out. You
Right.
ask the barista out or something like that. It
Yeah.
doesn't, but I never took into account that maybe there was a other force that could bring me things and work things out and organize my life. I never even thought that. And
Yeah.
I started learning that when I started jumping off into my career as a reader and as a healer, because I tried to figure out how I was going to make money. And I knew this was what I was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt God was pushing me that way, but I didn't know how it was going to look or if I was going to get money.
Mm-hmm.
And they would always, I remember I would always, like, it'd be on the days that we had this thing at the shop called Psychic Night. And that was my first experience as a healer. I would go to these psychic nights and I would do these readings. And that's how I started making money. And I developed these clientele. And on Tuesday nights, I'd be walking to the shop and or on my way to the shop, and I'd be wondering, how am I going to get money? What am I going to do? And I'd just be connected to fear. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember on one walk, I saw like 5 post office and like 10 FedExes. Like, it was crazy. And I thought about it and I thought, what does this mean? And I thought, I think it means things will be delivered to me. I'll get the delivery and
Wow.
I'll be okay. Because that's how I felt.
Wow.
And there were other
Yeah.
signs as well, but I felt like I'd get the delivery. And then I went to the shop, and sure enough, there was 3 people. They'd be like, hey, how's $50? How's $40? How's whatever? And they
Wow.
paid me. And then I started trusting
Amazing.
that would work. Yeah.
Beautiful. Oh man, that's so nourishing what you're sharing there too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Um, Hobbes, he was a philosopher. I think it was in the 16th century.
Oh, not Calvin and Hobbes. the,
I wish I
the
could
tiger
use that
making
analogy.
yeah.
Maybe
The
you can
big
think of
tiger,
one after I use
the
this
stuffed
analogy.
animal tiger of wisdom. He once
Yeah.
said,
Or Pinky and the Brain. Let's take
yeah.
over the world. How are we going to take over the world today? Um, so yeah, actually, that's kind of funny. Pinky and the Brain taking over the world. That's actually the ultimate conclusion of not trusting. The only way to be safe is to take over the whole world and rule the whole
Totally.
world, right?
Yeah. And that's where a lot of our constructs came from, is that, like, in order to
Right.
be safe, I have to do something to control.
Yep.
Yeah.
But Hobbes, this philosopher, centuries ago, for at least 400 or 500 years, came out with this philosophy that, and it wasn't a new idea in the history of civilization, but because of the way that our society was and the fact that people were writing books and people were reading intellectuals books, and culture was responding to people expressing themselves in that way, he had a very, very deep effect with his philosophy on that culture and subsequent cultures up till now in Western civilization. And his basic premise was that everything is a battle. It's me against the other person. And if I don't fight for myself, somebody else is going to fight and take from me. And I found this book on connection when I was going through a healing around connecting to others and feeling like I was insufficient and I was defective. And I always had this feeling all my life that I wasn't good enough to connect with others, that either they wouldn't like me or I wouldn't have something of value to bring, or they just wouldn't, they 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 would feel like I wanted something from them and I wasn't really bringing anything, stuff like that. And so I was going really deep into meditating and asking about this and stuff. I think it was around a time one of my other dogs had passed away. So that was a trigger also for a deeper look. And I came across this book one night on the internet. I was actually led. I was like, I told, like, go look on the internet, and I searched under connection, and this book talked about, it's like this scientific study that was done by this global scientific institute that went and looked through the history of connection, but also did all these tests on people, like to show, is there really a thing like connection that we need? And you know, and it came up, it showed that people have different indexes of how much connection, like different personality types need it to different levels. Some people are really socially need to have a lot of social connection more than others. And but it basically showed, you know, that for one thing, Hobbes, it looked into Hobbes' personal life, and it showed that he had a really, really troubled life, and had a, and I think there was even some like mental institution kind of stuff and things. And it kind of said, you know, like, you know, obviously if a guy had a super, super difficult life, he might have that kind of outlook on the world, you know. And and then it also just really showed from a scientific, biological, kind of like chemical perspective, we are built for connection and need connection. And in any way, so when I was meditating and I was and all this was coming to me, what happened inside of me is, because I was going deeper and looking into my fears and my feelings of defectiveness and all the things that I was afraid to look at while coming across this book and everything, and seeing that the perspective that I had been given by society was actually the opposite of the reality of what we really are as people and humans. It all of a sudden, I had this healing. It just kind of, the whole thing just kind of flipped for me, like through divine touch and through my opening of my heart. You know, I don't think it's just something that happened in my mind. I think it was like a synchronicity of giftedness and everything, and timing. And I think a lot of times healings are that whole synchronicity. And all of a sudden, I realized and felt and experienced that instead of me being not good enough for others to want to connect to, I was the connection that others were longing for.
Mm.
And I realized, you know, of course, that's everybody. Everybody is the connection that others are longing for. If I don't go out and connect, they won't have someone to connect to. If we don't all go out and connect, they won't have somebody to connect to, right? We all have to go out to connect to have somebody to connect to. So we are the connection that others are longing for. And isn't that trust, you know? And, you know, it's one of the ways that even in culture through hundreds and hundreds of years, we have been kind of programmed into not trusting or believing in trusting ourselves and trusting one another, that
Yeah.
we are valuable, we have something valuable to bring to others, and it brings us joy, and it brings us uh, happiness and a sense of well-being, you know.
Sure. Absolutely.
um, there's been times like I went to I've gone to bars, and you know, I just, some friends wanted to go to a bar or something, and so
Is that
I
you?
used to not go out that often. Yeah, it's some kind of meeting reminder or something. It doesn't like to give up. Can you hear the
Nah.
dinging?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's like a Zoom
I
or
like it. I kind of
a
like it.
Google Calendar thing, maybe, I think. Yeah, my phone's going off too. Anyway, I don't actually have something right now, but I would, you know, happen to be going out to a bar, and I kind of came from a background where I spent a lot of time by myself or with my animals. So this was always kind of like a fresh awakening for me when I'd go out with friends and have that really good time where you kind of like just don't worry about anything and everybody. And even if something comes up in conversation where somebody's worried about something, people kind of like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. It's not such a big deal, you know, screw them or whatever, you know. And just that whole social feeling of community around what you're going through, it brings such a sense of well-being. Like community and connection and trust is so affirming and so you know, uh, it's just so it's like all of that, all of the things that we feel from isolation and loneliness, it's like are healed in that connection, you know. And I'm always surprised. It's kind of like getting in a hot tub, you know. You put it off, you don't do it, it sits back there or whatever for months, and then you go and get in it, and you're got like, why am I not doing this every day? This feels so damn good. I forgot how good
Yeah.
this feels. You know, it's
I don't
like
think that would if I had a hot tub, I don't think I would experience that. I'd be like, it'd
every
be the
day.
exact opposite. I'd be like,
Yeah.
why don't I go and do other things besides hot tub? I mean, why don't I experience other life? People, but I
Um,
get your point. I get your point. I
yeah,
get
yeah,
your.
yeah. You forget how good it, you know, I feel like, you know, using the word fucking here, but you forget how fucking good it feels, man.
Yeah, fucking can be a very good adjective.
Um, but that's what like getting out with other people that are just really fun people and open people, you know, um, you know, like genuine people, or some level of genuineness there, some level of realness and genuineness, you know, acceptance. That's what's probably so great. That's what's so great about your soul school, you know, having those get-togethers. I really I hope that we can set your laptop up and get me into like a, you know, a Zoom meeting when you guys are sitting around sometime, because I miss
Yeah,
the
yeah, we
soul
could.
school.
Yeah, and you could come. You could come down whenever you feel comfortable or whenever you're ready.
You mean like drive down, or you
Yeah,
mean do the Zoom thing?
Zoom
Oh,
or
okay.
yeah, if you ever were in the area is what I meant. Because last time you
Oh,
were coming down, it
well,
might be
last time
harder
I
to.
was actually working in Portland.
Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I
that's
thought.
one. Yeah. I was, um, yeah.
Yeah, that would be kind of interesting to set my laptop's in enough. It's clear enough that I could probably do that because you look like you're here right now. You know,
It's like,
my laptop has a big screen too. It's a nice big screen. I really like this laptop. It
oh,
was really great.
it's one of those recursive things. You can't like point your laptop at itself and show me the laptop.
No.
A mirror. There you go.
Yeah. I could tell you what it you could find it online easily.
Oh,
That's
okay, okay. I want to pick another. Oh, here's one of my favorites. This one.
Oh, that's good. Wow.
Yeah. The Divine Mother.
The Divine Mother.
Yep. Well, I guess we've been going for about a half an hour. I know that the first couple of videos, you know, I guess the one I did, the second one, I think I did about 45 minutes, and our first one was like an hour and a half.
Yeah, I think
On
we actually
YouTube,
started at 1:15. So we've been going for a good 50 minutes.
50 minutes. Oh, wow. Still quite a while. So
Yeah.
if we want, I don't know if there's anything else that we want to talk about. I think the topic of this video kind of became trust, you know?
I think you did too. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I felt. Yeah.
So I don't know if we have any final thoughts about trust. I have one thing that I could share.
Okay.
I had a big breakthrough at work this week, at the beginning of last week, last Monday. Um, so I've experienced a lot of pain over the years, um, going to work. I think some of it's been normal. You know, you have to go to work. It's work. And
Right.
other things have been kind of like because of my own psychological problems that I've had from coming out of abuse and stuff, and insecurities, and then I got to put like the social part of the social contract, not just the psychological but also the sociology of it, that our culture and our programming also creates pain and difficulties in the work environment. And there's also the corporate mentality, like on the show on Netflix Billions. You can kind of see there's actually a place where Axe, he actually, the billionaire says, I want these workers to be afraid of my disapproval so that they'll perform better, you know.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of reasons that we could have fears within us in the workplace that make it a really painful experience. Being in a place where there's a lot of fear, of course that's going to be a form of suffering. And so I've pondered this question and looked at it and meditate on it and gone deep in me. And I've actually kind of felt even bad about going into a healing ministry without having had resolved this, because it's like, I don't know if this is really a double standard or not, but I kind of had this question inside myself. How could I be helping people to be healed and helping people to be happy about going to work when I could never go to work and be happy? And now, of course, if I'm going to be healing others, maybe it's easier to be happy,
Yeah.
So there was that sense of wanting to be genuine somehow within myself. And what happened for me, there's been little, things along the way, but no matter what little openings and healings I had, I still had this fundamental fear and pain going to work. And oh, also there was this transition in my life through having really, like low paying jobs, environments that were really harsh, and a gradual progression in my life at having, quote unquote better jobs, but also a long progression of what you could say that I failed, because I got fired from a lot of jobs. I lost a lot of jobs. I quit some jobs. I had what I would call not a very worldly view of success in my career. In fact, for a long time, I didn't even have a concept of career. And so, gradually I studied really, really hard, and I got more knowledge in the computer area, and I started getting contracts. But contracts are kind of a painful thing in and of themselves, because you kind of come in as an outsider, and you're not really necessarily a part of the team. You're not an employee, and you haven't been there that long, and you might not be there that long. You might only be there for a 6 year month contract, or 9 month contract, or even sometimes a 3 month contract. So there's that sense of not really gelling, and also the corporation not really investing in you, because you're just kind of like, you're supposed to be the expert, come in, do the work, and you're gone, and they don't really, invest in you because you're going to be there for the long term. And so it has its own pain. But speaking of trust, so about 6 months ago, or 3 months, 4 months ago, when I got this job, I was again going for a contract job, because I thought I'd want an employee job, but I didn't think I could get one. I didn't think I was good enough. And it's like all these different jobs were coming to me contract, because I've gotten to the point now to where at least I get good opportunities coming in. But all of a sudden, just kind of like out of left field, I got this company interested in me that was wanting me as an employee. So it's like the first time that happened. And so I've ended up getting hired by this company as an employee for the first time. But yet I still had all this fear. But I could see it was a little bit different now because I had a sense that it was going to be more like a family. And the people kind of acted more like it was a family. And so I felt like, in a family, there's that sense that you can fuck up, but you're still part of the family. It's going to go on. And so that there was kind of a reduction in fear there, and me more of a trust. I felt more of a trust that I could grow and learn and relax more, and maybe things are going to be okay. But still, I had this really, really deep, just unhappiness. And like it would just catch me like on the weekend or sometime during the week, the subconscious thing would come up in me and I'd be like, oh, I have to go to work again. And I could recognize it wasn't my passion. I thought, okay, maybe it's because I'm not doing what I really want to do. And there has been this recognition that I want to get into healing, like you said earlier, that something was telling you to go in the direction of healing for what you do with
Right.
where you're living. And so I was kind of like saying, well, that must be why I'm not happy. It's because I'm not doing what my authentic self wants to do. And I knew that that was part of it, but I still knew there was something else wrong, some other thing. It wasn't totally resolved. And this last Monday, I got the answer. So what happened? I was taking a shower, and I usually meditate in the shower and try to give my day to the divine in the shower each morning. That's where I do it.
That's better than take a fart before letting the
Yeah,
divine. It's the
right.
divine shower.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Some
Go
people
ahead.
do it when they fart. Um, so so I was like, and all of a sudden it just came to me, like just came to me clear and simple. But I got to preface that by saying that I had also been in this process of asking, along with giving my day to the divine, I had also been saying, I recognize that I am a loving being. I recognize that I'm a loving man in this world. Show me how to expand that. Show me how to become more of what that is, to realize that more and become more of that. And that had been going on for about 2 or 3 weeks. And anyway, so this moment came, and all of a sudden it became obvious to me that all of that work that I had done to learn to go within myself, to go into meditation and to find my fears and to let them come up and to see what was underneath that fear, how I was made in a beautiful way, that the reason I have a problem is because some other part of me has a need that needs to be resolved, and to allow that come up. And maybe the divine says something to me, maybe my own psyche says something to me, but there's a deeper learning and even an emotional release of acceptance of myself as being loved in a situation where maybe I was rejected or traumatized. But that same process that had been such a faithful, consistently affording me freedom and happiness, a gaining of happiness by becoming more aware within myself, I could suddenly trust that that same process, I could do it with work. And when it clicked that because I had learned to trust my inner process, it wasn't just applying the process to work, but it was taking a process that I know I trusted and bringing it to work so that I know that I could trust it with work. And I just all of a sudden I saw the whole thing. I saw that when I go within, I find a place when I'm having something that's bothering me or I'm afraid inside of myself, I have a place that I go to where I, even though the struggle and the dissonance and the disequilibrium is still there, I can still go there with a sense of peace and relaxation, not a sense of fear, knowing that I can at least go to that place and trust myself, trust the divine, and trust that love has made me consistent and can bring up into me what needs to be brought up, and that there's a consistency in the divine's relationship to me that's going to always be consistent. All of that is there for me now in the work environment. And I literally, for the first time in my life, was sitting there in my work environment with no fear, complete relaxation, complete trust. And as challenges came up, there was like more distance between me and the challenges. I was in a place, like they said, the gurus say, it's you're in your backbone instead of being up front in your senses. You're in this place of deep being within yourself. And I could just feel that distance and that space for me. And all of a sudden, it was some really neat things happened. Like one of them was I could see the value of my thinking and my processing more and appreciate it more. And I could see also the difficulty of the problems more clearly, not in a personal way, but in more of a like a letting go way, like objective way, where this stuff that I'm working with is damn difficult. And it's no wonder that people have such a struggle with this, and so many different people are having so many different problems in this stuff we're working with. It's just really, really hard. And then another thing happened, and that was this recognition of the power of guidance and creativity. And I could just, as I was sitting there, I felt like this power that was all of a sudden at my discretion. Like I could just open my mind and heart to something. And instead of just compulsively jumping on it in fear and pushing myself, getting it done before it's done, I could sit back and ask the divine and ask myself, what would be a good solution in this situation? And all of a sudden my depth increased, you know. So anyway, yeah. Um, that for
That's
me was like bringing trust into the workspace instead of letting the environment of fear that the external world wants to give us what's appropriate there, says what's is supposed to be
yeah,
appropriate, you
yeah.
know. And then I was in a couple meetings, and I came from an authentic, open, kind of spontaneous place, and I actually witnessed other people in the group relax and become more spontaneous and kind of like a little bit more exploratory with ideas. I seen the attitude of the group change. It's like that thing called co-regulating, where when
Yes,
somebody's really in a peaceful place, other people start feeling more peaceful, you know?
definitely. Yeah,
Yeah. And if when we find that space for ourselves, it can and does help others, you know?
absolutely. Yeah, because it's unlimited, and so you bring that structure into your world, and people feel it. They connect to it.
Right.
That's basically, I try to find that place whenever I do soul school,
Hmm.
or whenever I do readings. I try to provide that structure for people
Hmm.
to be able to feel calm and safe in.
Yeah. And I feel that those times I went, that's why I miss it. Because I
Yeah,
felt that in your meetings. I felt that from you, and I felt it in the group, you know.
that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I wanted to get back with you. Is because I
Yeah,
felt that, you know.
I'm glad you called me. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really I like this conversation, and I like what you said because that reminded me of like how like the trust and love are really the same because what it made me feel like you if you really have trust you could feel just confident and okay in all situations. You can just feel very like I'm okay here. I don't have to fight this. I'm fine. Everything's gonna be okay. And I know that that's one of the great and most wonderful gifts that I feel like the divine has helped me with over the years. And it took a long time to really apply this all day, every day. But when you do that, you find in your heart and in yourself that feeling of safety and goodness. And you feel like you can go in all situations and feel okay. Like any person, any situation, anything um, can help you. And I was walking down the street and there's this big burly guy, and I'm not very comfortable with the mask law. So I was in the forest and I didn't have a mask on. And I could feel a couple of people were giving me the stink eye from it. And there's this one big burly guy, and I could feel his presence. But then I felt in my heart, I said, you know what? I'm okay in this situation. I'm fine. He can't bully me around. And it was as soon as I felt that that presence was totally gone. Like there was no, I felt like I totally could handle that situation no matter what happened. And
Yeah.
it's just this wonderful confidence and feeling of safety because you just feel like you are okay in all moments, and you're
Yes.
supposed to be wherever you are accepting it as it is, and you're
Yeah.
not fighting it now. And that's enlightenment, is when you reach that place where you
Yeah.
are completely and totally acceptance
Yeah.
of now, and you are not fighting it, you're not doing it. And the divine will push you to that place. It'll help you, it'll accelerate that to help you become that person.
Attract you to that place and
Yeah,
help maybe a little bit of pushing.
it'll push you and it'll help you. But that's what it was
Yeah.
doing for me because I felt, so like miserable in my own skin, and it helped me to be confident in that. And
Mm,
I do feel like that has really helped me over the years because it's given me this foundation of tr- of trust and support that I can trust myself, I can trust the moment, I can trust God, I can trust that the other people in my life are not trying to screw me over, and that
so
everything is connected.
how would you describe the divine pushing you? Because that's how you worded it, and that's really interesting. Um,
It'll just show you situations where you to improve that, or show you where you need to like
oh, okay, I
advance in
see.
that.
I see.
So it's basically like the divine uses Ganesh to basically say, because we're all basically enlightened to a certain degree, but we have all these obstacles in our way, that are illusions, that are in our way. And so those the divine flows through those obstacles to get to your divine location, to get to where you are. So if you seek peace, you have to go through the non-peace to get to peace,
Mm,
if that's what's in your way. So they will show you the things that are in the way of peace to remove them and to heal them. And so if
mm,
you feel completely, if you want to feel totally secure in yourself and your body and your life, then welcome to experiencing insecurity. And then and so then you can bring awareness into that moment, and then you I'm looking at all the gold here. Then you alchemize it. Then you
yeah,
transmute it. That's the darkness is the insecurity, and then the light is the security,
yeah.
and then you observe it, and then soon on the other side of that is confidence and control. Like I was really uh totally nervous around girls and just people in general and speaking. I remember 10 years ago, I was in I was working, or I was at college, Goddard College is where I went to school. And they they had this thing where in class you have to, you go around and say, hey, what's my name, and blah blah blah. And I remember being completely terrified when it was my turn, and I could barely even talk. I was so like weird. And now I'm running groups. I can like I feel very comfortable in almost most social situations,
You're
and that
doing
was because
radio shows on videos
doing
on the
radio
internet.
shows, talking to people, and I'm doing things that I never thought I would do, and that's because the divine trained me. This other aspect of kind of what I'm talking about is called divine training. It's
Mm,
basically the divine wants to yoke. It's the process of you yoking with your divine, and so it trains you to do that every day. So it's like, okay, what do we need to do to remove the behaviors that are not divine or no longer serving you, to
yeah,
unify you with your consciousness. And so they'll bring two things to you to see and to observe. And
yes,
so I really like what you said, because it made me feel like that was what we're heading towards, being secure and safe in all moments,
yeah,
and being accepting of all moments. And that is what
mm,
true love is, because you are not, true love does not have a dog in the fight. It's just like, yeah, we're totally good. I remember I read a book, I think it was Eckhart Tolle, about how he said that there was this Zen monk who had spent many years searching for enlightenment, and he couldn't quite get it. And then one day he went to a butcher, and he asked the butcher. He says, "Hey butcher, give me your best the best selective meat that you have." And the butcher looked back at him and said, "All the meats are good. All the meats are the good ones." And then at that moment he figured it out. He was like, "Oh, that's it," because he figured out that all of them were fine. And that
ah,
was basically, if you were to be given the T-bone, that was in the divine order, that's fine. If they were going to give him the cutlet, that was it, that was
yeah,
okay. So it didn't matter what it was,
right,
he was going to be fine. And that meant that
right,
he was in this state of total allowing of whatever comes your way. And I
yeah,
think that's really vital, because that gets you out of like the ego wants to be like, oh, it's got to be this way or that way. And
hmm,
and if you are to want to allow things to come your way, you have to be open to gifts, because so many times the divine is just giving you a delicious, amazing cheesecake of a gift to you, and you don't recognize that it is that, because you're just like, nah, that's not what I that's not it you know
so
and
relying upon the mind,
yeah,
yeah, I think that's where some science falls short because they're that the idea is that if you can trust your mind and that you can trust the mind to do good science and then that will make life better. Well,
you mean like
there is
your
truth
intellectual
to
mind?
that.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that there is truth to it to a certain degree, but it's kind of like a vicious circle in a way because the mind can always say, well, this isn't good enough, I want even more.
Right.
And the mind can't ever totally resolve a question because a question just brings up another question. And
Yep.
so do we really have the final answer in something? And so that's why going past the mind into the heart is what I've experienced is what can bring the fulfillment, can bring the
Right.
trust,
Exactly.
can
Yeah.
bring the
You're
knowingness,
getting
can
out of
bring
your
the safety,
thinking
the
mind.
protection. And it's like anything can happen to you. And if you're happy in your heart with that thing, then it's not going to make life bad. Even a
Exactly.
passing of a loved one, which I've gone through like 6 or 7 times, I even used to think I was bad when somebody was passing away. I couldn't get past this feeling that I had done something bad because they were passing away. And it took me this long progression of going through loved ones passing to finally realize that I have no control over it. It's nothing bad about me. It's just I can only open my heart to this. And once I started doing that, I actually started getting spiritual gifts from loved ones passing,
Exactly. Yeah.
coming into my heart and
Yeah.
all this stuff. So there's nothing bad in existence that can
Yeah.
happen
I
to
think
us when we're
it's
coming from
vital.
the heart.
Yeah, you're seeing things as up. When you were saying that, it made me think that you see things as opportunities. Like things are all, everything is basically a divine gift. That everything is a divine. The universe is basically giving you something that actually opens something up. It will remove suffering. It will take you to new places. It's an opportunity to see yourself or to develop. everything's good, and it's really difficult to see life that way if
Yeah.
you're not in a trusting, open place.
And so one really big thing that I just remembered I wanted to say this week,
Yeah.
because a couple of the groups that I go to, there's this real concern about getting down to the practical, especially because politically and in our culture right now, there's a lot going on around disadvantaged people and
Yeah.
people who don't have equal opportunity, and how there's the privileged people who don't really get that. There's that perception that that people who are in a privileged place don't really get how bad it is, and aren't really giving the unprivileged the real opportunities. And all of that stuff I don't disagree with, but I've also been on the street helping homeless people, like for instance in San Francisco, and I know there's always two sides of the story. There's also the human side where people sometimes they're comfortable in the place that they're in and they don't want help getting out of it. And sometimes they've got their own personal challenges that are equal to all of the challenges that we all have, which is to learn to trust and to
That's
open
it.
our hearts. So
Awesome.
everybody's accountable, no matter what privilege they're given in society, for certain basic things within their relationship to themselves and to whatever else outside of them. And if you're in a place of saying fuck it, then no matter what privilege level you're at, you're still kind of turning off the flow around you. You're stepping out of the flow, and you're not letting things come to you and accepting what comes and going with that. And you got to start with where you're at, no matter where you're at, and no matter what the circumstances that got you there. You can only start from where you're at. There's things like that. That's the other side of the coin too. So anyway, the whole point of me bringing this up is that it comes down to how in my life, with me trying to find the divine and trying to become one with the divine through an inner path and through outward openness too, how does that come down to something practical in my life where I'm helping others in this world? And so one of the things is that the fact that I was able to take it from my own inner meditative journey to doing it in the workplace, that is a really, really fucking good example of me being able to go into a practical place and become more useful, more effective, and more supportive, because I'm bringing that non-fear presence into a practical place where real problems are getting solved. And then I can also take it to the homeless, or I can take it to discussions and practical action about helping disadvantaged, unprivileged people become more privileged. But also on top of that, it's not okay I understand the grief and the passion of people that are saying, hey, who's standing up for the unprivileged? But they, at the same time, it's not okay for them to start using that and putting guilt trips on people and trying to motivate people out of guilt, because you can't persist that. It's not, it's not uh sustainable if you're going to use guilt and fear to motivate people, because that's still that same old fear paradigm. And people are not going to be really truly expressive, and they're not going to be touching their true passion and genuine selves. You want people helping the disadvantaged who are doing that out of deep, authentic, free, loving, non-guilt approaches to really be making effective changes. And right. So I think there is a thing called discernment. That's different than judgment, where you're discerning that maybe people need to recognize these things more, but you can't be forcing them on them or attacking them with it, even though it's a very just cause.
Yeah.
You know, So yeah, those are just some thoughts. But the thing that came to me, the final statement about that is
Okay.
that it comes down to, are you externally focused in order to have trust, or are you internally focused to have trust?
That's it. Yep.
It's like people who choose to be externally focused, it's always going to be competitive. It's always going to be based on circumstances, on what I do have and what I don't have. And that's just not, that's it's always going to be fearful. If you're internally focused and you find that the power and the source and the love and everything is coming up from within you, the satisfaction and the fulfillment, then you're going to be able to bring your authentic self into situations in a loving, passionate, compassionate way, and being able to be real with yourself so that people can confront you. But it's your ultimate choice, because you go within to find your genuine self. It has to be you going within that says, I want to help the unprivileged. It can't be forced on you from external.
Yeah. I got it. Yep. That's it.
Yeah. So yeah, I forgot about that. So that made us go longer. But anyway, oh well, who's to say it has to be 15 minutes or half an hour? Maybe eventually it'll become that, we'll have, or maybe not, but
Yeah.
yeah. We're supposed to be spontaneous too, right? Not be
Yes.
fear-based. So hey, we're breaking all the rules, but for the right reasons, maybe. It's not entertainment, right? It's soul food. So maybe it's okay if it's longer.
Sounds good.
All right, Frank. Thanks.
All right, Robin. Thank you very much. I'll
All right.
see you. I'll talk to you soon. Talk to you next week.
Okay. Bye bye.